Okay. Our speaker today is our own Reverend Trish.
Okay, yay!
And she has been a member in Metaphysical Chapel of Life since December 2018. She's a former secretary and president of the board of directors, and she's currently a novitiate minister, novitiate minister pursuing full ordination through the chapel and our charter church, the Church of Enlightenment. She's also a graduate of international medium, Joseph Shiel. Joseph Shiel's evidential mediumship mentoring program, and she has received her mediumship certification and Reiki practitioner certification through the Montclair Psychic School. Her studies in metaphysics began in the 1980s, and they continue to this day. And with a current focus on energy work, physical phenomena, physical phenomena, and spirit communication. She's also the initiator of our online presence, which she started when we shut down for COVID in 2020. She's the lead, as you can see, of our in-person media. Yeah. No, she's the lead of our in-person media team. And she's one of the chapel musicians. I just hear this morning how well she also sings. And she's the author and illustrator of Wisdom from the Podium and editor of Gather Round Our Table, both books which are available here at the chapel. And I recently said to her, I don't know if she remembered, because when I said, she had a surprised look on her face. I said, Trish, I know why you're so quiet now. And she looked and said, me quiet? I said, because you are so darn creative that your mind is probably working on what you're going to do next.
True.
Extremely, and she does pottery too.
Yeah.
She's very creative. Reverend Trish believes that greater peace in life is possible when you understand how the highs and lows of your current experience support your path in this incarnation. So I give you our speaker today, Reverend Trish.
Yay! We're glad you're back, Trish. We're glad you're back.
I know, it's been a while. I've presided. I haven't spoken. So let me just make sure. Do we have to adjust the...
Oh, I've been telling you you're selling for free today.
Let's see. Just adjusting the camera height. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so the title of this talk is 2025, a number 9 universal year. And before I start, I want to open with a prayer. Mother, Father, God, be with me now in this lecture and allow these words and thoughts to impact each listener in the exact way that most benefits them on their life journey. Let each listener hear the message that they most need in a way that empowers them and brings joy to their lives. Amen.
Amen.
So usually around this time of year, I like to talk about the universal year and just try and give people a little bit of a my perspective on what that means and how that's going to impact all of us in the year to come. And so I deliberately took this particular speaking slot so I could talk about it. I have had a love of numerology since the 1980s. I had a teacher who said, well, since you're an engineer, you're probably going to really like working with numbers. And I really do. She said, for her, numbers just didn't speak to her, but for me, they do. And so a lot of things in my life, I frame them in the numerological numbers, and they show up for me in places. But for a general background, for people who aren't as familiar with numerology, it's really a divination technique. It's a divination technique that is based on the time, the date, the day of the month and the year that you were born, the name that you were given at your birth, at the very time of your birth. And so in that way, it's a lot like astrology, based on your time of birth. The difference of numerology is it packages its themes and your life lessons and experiences in cycles of 9. And so the premise is that life any one of us is at any given time working through a cycle of 9 years. And number 1 is the beginnings, when you're just starting out and initiating something that's got a theme, a general theme of what's new. And then as the next 9 years progress, you come to the end of that cycle and you have closure on it and completion and things wrap up, and then you're ready for the next cycle to start. So life presents itself to all of us in these repeating cycles. The first cycle is pretty long. It goes until you're somewhere around 28 to 35, depending on your birth year. And the last cycle is very long because it lasts from about 50 or 55 until the end of your life. But those 2 cycles in between are 9 years long, and they have a theme to them. And so if you can divine through doing the numbers for your personal year, if you can divine where you are, what cycle you're in, and what number you're on, it gives you a little bit of clarity and insight into why some of the experiences that keep presenting them to you impact you in the emotional way that's tied to a particular number, which is the theme of that particular set of personal years. And the theme is generally called the pinnacle. So each of those cycles has a different theme to it. And if you believe the premise of numerology, what that theme is that's really why, some of the reason why you came in to have this journey, this set of life experiences. So some of the key numbers, 2 of the very key numbers one of them is the personal year, which is each individual person's set of experiences. We're not going to talk about that much today. What we really want to talk about is the universal year, because that's the year that impacts all of us the same. So the universal year is pretty easy to calculate. It's basically just the calendar year, the digits of the calendar year added together. So for 2025, it's 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5. And that's how we know we're in a number 9 year. So we're going into the number 9 year. And again, for all of us, this is a shared experiences for everyone on Earth, basically. Maybe everyone in the universe, if there are other folks out there. So what does the 9 mean? It means completions, endings, closure, putting things to rest so you can move on to the next thing. And remember, this is the number 9 universal year. So this is the shared experience of all of us on planet Earth. On top of that, you will have your own personal journey that is lending its own complexion to it. But for the universal year, this is our shared experience. Some of the things that you will see in a number 9 year, as you can well imagine, as things are coming to closure, there are going to be highs and lows associated with that. Because on any given, especially when you think of world events and the zeitgeist of our society, we tend to have a very polarized views these days. We have people on one side of the equation who want closure to look one way. We want people on the other side of the equation. So for an example, take the Brexit. And in the Brexit decision, there were people who were absolutely adamant on each side, and they felt like life as they knew it depended on one aspect coming out or the other. And so when a number 9 happens and something comes to closure, one group of people is probably going to be relieved and one group of people is probably going to be saddened. And that's going to be the way with a lot of things on number 9. So what I want you to kind of get yourself ready for in a number 9 year is a lot of things in the universal plane of existence that seem to be wrapping up, and all of the emotions that come with that from both sides. Quite often endings end with compromise, and they say compromise is where a good compromise is where no one's happy, right? So sometimes you have no one happy, but you have to find a way to close it and complete it. In the number 9 year, one of the things that you could definitely take heart in with any number in the cycle for numerology is that these are part of the plan, and this is the natural order. They have to come to closure. These life lessons are done. This set of experiences is ready to wrap up because you have to move on to the next set of experiences. So there's a lot of comfort, in my opinion, on knowing that when these things happen for any given year, when those lessons and those things happen, understand that there is divine activity there, that the divine is guiding it, even though it can feel disruptive, upsetting. If what the closure is not the way you hoped it would be, it can feel like you're let down or saddened. In a number 9 year, things will leave our lives. And some of these things that leave our lives, since this is the universal year, will be things that are societal norms will leave our lives. So one of the things that you want to keep in mind then, as we're going through number 9, look for some of these expressions. Why are we still beating this dead horse? When can we please move on? I'm so ready to be done with this. So this is what's going to happen. Everyone's going to want to move on. We're going to get tired of the conversation. And that's what you're going to see a lot of. And this is going to be on the full cycle of the universal self. So what I want to come back to for a little while, though, as I was pondering the number 9 year and what it meant to us universally, is that there's really, for the numerologist, there's an advantage in computing the personal year over the universal year, and that is that for the personal year, you can use the birth date to compute the pinnacle, the theme. So in the personal year, for any given person, I might say, for example, I'm in a number 5 set of my 9 years. My focus is going to be maybe a number 5. So I'm growing, I'm getting better at learning to deal with change. So that's the general theme, and that's called the pinnacle. For the universal year, there's no computation that can tell you what the theme is. And in my mind, the theme is really part of the whole crux of it, because you want to know, knowing what you're working on in general really helps you understand what all these things mean in the general sense. Otherwise, they seem chaotic. So I started really pondering that idea of how do we compute a pinnacle or a theme for a universal year. The idea of computing it for the world is a little bit flawed. There's no birth date for the world that ties down to a day and a month. So then I thought, well, maybe you could tie it back to just the United States. Maybe we could kind of see what it is for the U.S., but then, how do you know when is the exact birthday of the United States? Should it be the 1776 Declaration date? That the first government didn't do so well. The Constitutional Convention, should it be 1787 when they formed the new government, when they ratified? So I gave up that. I was like, well, there's no success there. So I thought, well, even if you could compute an exact birth date, the pinnacle computation in numerology is only expecting the length of a lifetime. So you wouldn't expect for any of us in our personal years, the last pinnacle is going to last from about 50 to 55 years old all the way the rest of your life. If that were the case for the universal year, we'd be in the last pinnacle for 200 years, and that doesn't seem right. So I decided to try something a little bit different, because I really think it's important to figure out what the theme has been for these 9 years that we have been experiencing in the last one that we are on. So I started backing out historically the sets of 9 years and looking for something that would jump out just to see if there really was possibly a theme. And one set of 9 years that jumped out, one set of universal years, was the period from 1963 to 1971. And I thought, well, that's really, that's a time of my life. I was actually alive for that cycle, so I experienced it firsthand. So for me, that worked better than something like one of the world wars where I wasn't around yet. And if you think about some of the key things that were happening from 63 to 71, U.S. was prime involvement in the Vietnam War. That was the heart of the hippie era, right? A lot of rebellion by the younger folks against social norms and politics. That was, to a large extent, really the birth and the heart of the civil rights movement. Key leaders who came into the scene for change. And then, on the other side of that coin, people who were so worried about the change they were bringing, so many assassinations of key leaders. Look at technology that was happening. That was the moon race. Kennedy announced we'd be on the moon by the end of the decade, and we landed on the moon in '69. So all those things fell into that period of 9 years. So with that in mind, looking for the common theme and matching them to the numbers. Was it new beginnings? Was it, number one? Was it communication and balance? Not really. That didn't feel right. What really resonated with me was the theme of control, number 8. And so if you think about it, war is always about control.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the people anyone who's fighting is trying to control the outcome. The hippie era was about people who didn't want to be controlled, and social norms that were trying to control, and the people equally well who were rebelling back against the hippie era with ultra-conservatism, trying to control society. The moon race was about, who gets there first, and are we going to control the moon or someone else, which is kind of a crazy thing in itself. The civil rights movement, being controlled, controlling others, establishing, keeping things as the status quo. So in my mind, that era had that general theme of control, all the sides that you get with it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But what we really want to know is, what is the theme for this set of 9 years? We're about to finish it. We'd like to know what we're finishing so that we can make sense of what happened. So I started looking. So this set of 9 years really started in 2017, and it's going to end at the end of this year in 2025. By an odd coincidence, and I couldn't really tie this to it, but 2017 was the beginning of President Trump's first term. And it's the beginning, number 9 year is the beginning of a second term.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be a clue there, although I couldn't figure out how that clue tied in. I looked back at Grover Cleveland, the only other president who had a split term, but his terms started, both of them, in the middle of different sets of 9 years. But what have been the themes for this set of 2017 through 2025? So let's think about transparency. Over and over it's come up. Revelations about entertainers, about politicians. It's just over and over you hear in the news, the, what's it called? The women's movement of where women are speaking out about the wrongs of it, the Me Too movement. Personal privacy has been a common theme, looking into things like Facebook and TikTok and stealing of data, sometimes taking your data, the loss of our data, the collection of our data, targeted advertising, and the commercialization of our personal, what we think of as our personal property. A proliferation of social media and all of the benefits and the challenges that offers, especially to our young people. The increase in suicides because of some of the things that happen over social media. Undeniable evidence of climate change and the universal impact. More than just the people who live on the coast have been affected. Questions related to sustainability. Where's our fuel going? How long can we continue to live as we live without damaging the planet? So all of these things together, they seem, again, very chaotic, and in some ways they seem to be different. But when you look at the numerology numbers and you say, are these about, number one, new beginnings? Are these about communication? Didn't feel right? Are these about, the discovery of self? The part that resonated with me was the number 7. Number 7 is about soul searching. It's about where each person is going in and saying, what really matters? Is this really the way I want to live? What is important for myself and for everyone moving forward? It's a real soul searching inner journey. And all of these things together, to me, feel like we're being constantly confronted with issues and situations that challenge our idea of what it really means and what is really of value to us and where we want to put our energy and our future. So I really believe, and my premise to you is that we have been in a cycle of 9 years where what we're working on as an entire universal community is that number 7, that soul searching. It's, we're good at all of these things now. We're good at technology. We're good at communication. But what parts of it really benefit us, and what are the parts of it that we need to end or to say goodbye to? So we've been faced over and over with stories, with revelations that challenge our standards and choices. And that's the conclusion I've drawn. What I'd really like to come to you with, which I think would be really inspirational, would be my guess at what the next pinnacle is going to be, because we're going to get closure on all of these things. We're going to be able to finally get out of this cycle. Number 7 is not one of my favorite types of numbers. It's just, it's very, it gets you so much in your head and gets you questioning all the things that you thought were things you knew, and that for me is an uncomfortable place. So I would like to look to what is the next part of it going to look like.
Sorry, Trish.
It's okay, Vivian.
I thought I turned it off. Every time.
So what I want to know is, what is the next pinnacle going to look like, the next set of themes? And I can't tell you that now, but if I'm around in 2035, which is going to be the number 9 year of the next cycle, I will talk on this podium in January and tell you what I think it was. So look forward to that. Understand that all of these highs and lows are the natural conclusion. This is where we're supposed to be. If things don't work out, or if you hear all of the emotion that comes as the door's closing, all of the emotions that involves, be ready for it. You know, don't listen too hard. Understand, as they say, this too shall pass. So I leave you with that message in love and light.
Interesting. Yeah.